Welcome back, folks, to WWE Network and Chill, episode 9 here today, breaking down episode 9, season 1 of WWE Breaking Ground as seen on the WWE Network, the penultimate episode before the season 1 finale, not including the Breaking Ground Reloaded episode, the 1-hour special, which I'll talk about momentarily as well in 2 more editions of Network and Chill. But yeah, here today, episode 9, season 1 of Breaking Ground. This episode will be talking about the preparation of all the wrestlers as NXT TakeOver Respect looms large. So in this episode, we kick off with Bayley, the then NXT Women's Champion, heading into the biggest match of her career to date in that 30-minute Iron Woman match against Sasha Banks in the main event of TakeOver for the Women's Championship. She's really nervous. She gets flown into the Night of Champions pay-per-view, which is interesting too, not really, but I mean, for all the people, when we hear these reports all the time of NXT wrestlers being backstage at WWE events, and we automatically assume it means a call-up. I mean, 9 times out of 10, it's usually for stuff like this, to do interviews for future stuff, because usually all the cast and crew of WWE is at these Raws and pay-per-views and whatever, so that's kind of their time to film these interviews and whatever. So it kind of makes sense that Bayley was backstage at the show. Did not mean that she was getting called up. I mean, there is the off chance that if we hear that Dana Brooke is backstage, she's getting called up, which was the case a few months ago, but just wanted to clear that up. But anyway, so we get a little look at Bayley as she prepares for the NXT Women's Championship match at TakeOver Respect with her title on the line in the 30-minute Iron Woman match. And we also get her, a first glimpse at her first action figure produced by Maddle, and she is absolutely over the moon, obviously, considering the fact that her and Banks are the biggest fans in the world. She's super surreal. She feels super surreal to have her own action figure. It's in her debut attire in NXT, so that's a really cool thing for her to see and for the fans to see her reaction to that as well. So also in this episode, we get a little bit more on Tino Sabatelli as he kind of reviews from the previous episode where we talked about in the live event match with Apollo Crews that did not exactly go the way that officials had hoped, specifically Matt Bloom. Tino thought it went well, to kind of recap, but Tino thought it went well. Matt Bloom did not. He was specifically kind of sour on his drop kick and also his lack of real punches. So he kind of goes over that here, and he kind of gets on a better level in regards to reviewing the match and seeing where he can do better. And that's basically all you got to do. I mean, some wrestlers, as you've probably heard in the past in podcasts and stuff, talk about all the time how they don't really like to watch back their own stuff. And if I was a wrestler, I probably would do the same thing. But you have to. You have to watch back your own stuff to see where you went wrong, what you can work upon. And that's exactly what Tino's doing here in order to kind of improve as a wrestler. And he's already been kind of knocked down the podium toll a few times after getting, in the lack of push that he received following the match with Apollo Crews and kind of the demotion to the beginner class. So he's working harder than ever to get back to that top spot that he was once in, or as prominent of a spot that he was in before getting to NXT TV, of course. So we also get a little bit more on Dana Brooke. Obviously, the last episode ended. It doesn't go immediately into Dana Brooke as they thought it would. We don't really get too much clarification on what the injury is, because obviously the previous episode ended with Dana Brooke getting hurt at the hands of Asuka in a training match, or just training and working and wrestling around and whatever in preparation for their TakeOver match. And Dana Brooke takes a bad bump, and the episode ends abruptly, which isn't too surprising, going to kind of leave a cliffhanger for this show. But as we go into this episode, we don't really find out what that injury is. I think it's something neck and shoulder related, because the trainer kind of looks at her shoulder and she doesn't have a great range of motion. So there's something wrong there. I don't think it's a concussion. But she ended up being out for a long time, which we'll talk about in the season finale and Reloaded, which they talk about it in more detail as well. So I'm not exactly sure what the exact injury was, but we see more of Brooke here kind of training, and she's really down and out about being not being cleared for the TakeOver special, because obviously at TakeOver she has the biggest match of her career to date against the person that inadvertently injured her, Asuka. So she's got to be ready for that. She does end up getting cleared by the trainer, but she is pretty hesitant and nervous, understandably so, coming off that injury and how her performance is gonna come off at the TakeOver special. Jason Jordan, we get a little bit of him in this episode as well as he prepares for, again, the biggest match of his career as well. So a lot of breakout performances at this show, specifically from American Alpha as well. They were going to be in the semifinals and the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic against Baron Corbin and Rhino. And with this being their first special, both him and Chad Gable's first takeover, they wanted to be as special as possible. So Jason Jordan, I think it might have been Jordan or Gable, I'm not exactly sure, maybe a combination of both, had attire sent out, special attire to wear for TakeOver, because obviously a lot of the wrestlers like to wear something special and unique, something that stands out for these TakeOver shows, because it is like their, not WrestleMania, so to speak, but like their pay-per-view, so they want to go all out and do something nice, do something completely unexpected or special, whatever, and the attire does not get there in time, which kind of sucks. They do end up having a great match anyway, which I'll talk about in the Breaking Ground 10 episode, the Season 1 finale coming up in my next edition of Network and Chill. But it does kind of suck for Jason Jordan in that they don't get the attire that they wanted, but still they have an amazing performance regardless, which I'll talk about in the next episode, like I said. So the primary focus of this episode, I would say, is on Nia Jax, as she prepares to make her debut not at TakeOver Respect, but rather at the next episode of NXT, the next airing on live episode, whatever, the subsequent episode of NXT on TV, on the network, whatever. So obviously it airs after TakeOver, but they kind of play it up as it airs beforehand because we go to TakeOver in the next episode of Breaking Ground, which obviously she's super nervous. She has her family come down. She talks to her mom, and her mom kind of breaks down after everything that Nia Jax has been through, the car crash that she was in, which I remember reading about when it happened with her auntie, which is The Rock's mom, and both of them kind of got a little beat up from that, like bruised ribs and stuff like that. But so she's been through a lot. She's obviously nervous heading into her debut, but it comes off, goes off without a hitch. She comes off really, really well. She's kind of determining what she needs to do, feeling the music, feeling the moment of her debut is what her mom suggests as advice for her as she prepares to make her debut. But she gets her entrance music. She's trying to figure out what she could do for her entrance, and it all goes off, like I said, without a hitch. She does really, really well. The match comes off pretty well, and also even beforehand, she has kind of some pre-match jitters after talking with Baron Corbin and Rhino, who kind of build up some nervousness in her. They're not being dicks; they're just kind of playing around. But it's funny to see, Rhino say, you should be nervous. Are you nervous? But you should be, just because this is a big night, and this is really the moment in time in your career where you make an immediate impact upon your rival in NXT. So Nia Jax debut is a success. And we also get a little bit of Tyler Breeze in this episode as well, as he adopts a dog that he finds just, a stray dog that's kind of walking around the performance center. He talks to his girlfriend. She wants the dog, and they adopt the dog. So Tyler Breeze gets a new dog in this episode, which is pretty cool. But also he's preparing for TakeOver as he prepares to take on Apollo Crews at the live special. So that's basically a Breaking Ground episode 9. No real nothing of note, just kind of the build-up to TakeOver Respect. The only thing really of note on this episode, still an enjoyable episode. As always, there really is not a bad episode of Breaking Ground. But like I said earlier, the primary focus is Nia Jax preparing to make her debut on NXT TV, which comes off really well. Kind of see the behind the scenes of how all that came together and her thought process and her mindset going into that match and coming out of it. Her thoughts on how it came out and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. So check this episode out for that and everything else it has to offer. Before episode 10, the season 1 finale, like I said, I guess you can kind of call Reloaded the season 1 finale. I would call it more of an encore, if anything else. But check out that episode of my next edition of Network and Chill coming up. But in the meantime and in between time, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. Like I said, next episode we'll be covering Breaking Ground Season 10, or Season 1 rather, Season 10 I wish. Season 1, Episode 10, the Season 1 finale of Breaking Ground. So until next time, guys, Graham G. Matthews here, and I'll catch you folks down the road.